Our webinar today is entitled Customer Case Study, Tennant's Global SAP PLM Strategy. This webinar will discuss why Tennant, a global industrial manufacturer, chose to begin the implementation of a global PLM system based on SAP PLM solutions. The webinar will also include a discussion of issues regarding cultural change management, the benefits achieved from the first phase of the implementation, lessons learned, and the next steps for PLM implementation at Tennant. My name is Alan Mendel, Vice President at LeverX, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin our topic for today's webinar, let me briefly introduce you to LeverX. LeverX assists companies increase business value by leveraging existing investments in SAP solutions. LeverX is an SAP services partner, an associate member of the PLM Alliance. LeverX delivers strategic, functional, and technical services in the areas of SAP Product Lifecycle Management, Portfolio and Project Management, and related solutions. LeverX offers services for business process and strategic consulting, solution architecture development, implementation planning and execution, application management support, and on-site and remote delivery models. In addition, LeverX provides services for SAP mobile application strategy development and implementation, as well as a broad set of SAP technologies, including SAP NetWeaver, Workflow, Business Warehouse, and Business Objects. We are pleased to introduce our presenter for today's webinar, Jason LaPlante, Business Process Governance at Tennant. Our webinar agenda will proceed as outlined. Tennant's Global PLM Strategy will be given by Jason, and then we'll open up the webinar for some questions. If you think of some questions during the presentation of Jason, please enter those into the GoToWebinar question box. We'll try to respond to as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar, given the time remaining. We'll now turn the time over to Jason.
Hello, everybody. This is Jason LaPlante. Can everyone see my screen with the shiny red airplane and the red floor or reflection?
We see it, Jason. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. Well, as Alan mentioned, we'll be speaking today about our implementation of a global PLM strategy, and my name is Jason LaPlante. And some of you may have seen previous presentations I've made on this subject, and today, as Alan mentioned, might be a little bit different in that I'm going to spend a little bit less time talking about the technical solution itself and more time about reasons why we did it, the advantages we've gained from PLM, and a key series of lessons learned in case you're about to embark on or looking to proceed through your own PLM journey. So hopefully what I discuss with you today is useful to you. I won't spend a lot of time talking about the old processes because from the number of webinars and conferences I've been to, it sounds like a very similar scenario that a lot of companies had grown up and developed over time. But our ECO process was a homegrown system that was sufficient for a small company. At that time, primarily consisting of 2 locations in the U.S. and 1 location overseas. Our process, being homegrown, really relied on tribal knowledge and a number of business heroes in each plant to push engineering changes through the system. The success was based on their ability and the regional effort that and diligence that everybody contributed. But the methods were inconsistent, and therefore results were highly inconsistent. And another big problem was that because everybody sees engineering change order as being owned by engineering, the design engineering resources we have were required to own every change that they initiated through the whole process of engineering, production logistics, production ramp up, and then the whole quality execution part in the plant. So they were being drawn away from spending their time in their core design functionality, and they were owning a lot of operations applications. So this was too much of a drain on our design resources that we needed to focus on product development and new product or current product improvements. So we had to tackle that problem. So the other part of this was translating a culture that we had to new acquisitions that we'd been working with or distributing that over wider spread regions like China and Brazil was going to be largely unsuccessful and not sustainable for our long-term corporate growth. The system itself comprised of a very extensive Excel worksheet with many tabs of data that had to be collected from various people throughout the organization as they received email notifications to take a look at the change that was in process. And they had to input their data into these spreadsheets, and then later the data had to be rekeyed into SAP at every plant level. So again, using an Excel system coupled with Outlook email to try to notify people that they had work to do. Other than the fact that the change order was an SAP change master number, most of this was done offline. Tracking a change that was in progress, everybody had their own favorite tracking tools to say where their multiple ECOs were in the process. Down in the bottom right corner is an example of a SQL database spreadsheet that we used to try to help people track all of the ECOs that were in flight to some varying degrees of successfulness. The other issue we had were that sign-off requirements. Because it's a spreadsheet, you know, there was basically lines in the spreadsheet to sign off that you had inputted all the data required. It was a public spreadsheet attached to a change object in SAP. So the data in the spreadsheet was not protected, so we had lack of security issues and a certain, therefore, lack of trust in the data that was maintained on the spreadsheets. And then again, because everything was manual, everything was inputted by various people throughout our plants and facilities, we had this engineering records team that I mentioned earlier was required so that we had an audit team and a process management team to keep everything moving and to try to attempt to keep everybody providing complete and concise information. Those manual audits, though, consistently yielded greater than 60% first non-conformance. Only about 40% were acceptable going through the first time. And it was kind of an iterative process when we had new users coming on board to try to learn how to manage this system. They would do ECOs, the audit team, the records team would come back and say, you didn't do this right, you need to be doing this better. And in spite of whatever training we could provide them, it would take approximately about 2 years for most engineering authors to become proficient in managing this whole process.